Hey everyone, welcome back to Loopy Studio, and today I'm here to talk about the Mandalorian and Grogu movie that just came out this past weekend. It's the first Star Wars film to be released since Rise of Skywalker in 2019. So this was a pretty big deal. Star Wars returning to the big screen. It basically has just stuck with Disney Plus shows since then, both animated and live action. Some really successful ones like The Mandalorian, which is what this movie is based on, the three-season show that came prior. Season 3 released in 2023. So it's been 3 years since we have seen Mando and Grogu, and we finally get to see them again in this theatrical film. So going into this, I didn't have super high expectations. I mean, well, from what I heard, it's a standalone film, and it doesn't really advance the plot any. It's just kind of there, but it's nice to see Mando and Grogu again. Just kind of that thing. So I didn't really have my hopes up for it. And I went in and I kind of just left feeling like meh about it. Like I thought it was a very middle of the road film. Like there were good things about it. There were parts that I liked, and then there were parts that I just thought were pointless. And it didn't advance the story any. It didn't really have a story in the first place. Like I thought the plot of the film was pretty weak. I just didn't really care for it. I thought including the Hutts was an okay way to tie back to the original trilogy and the themes there. But beyond that, I just felt like it was a waste of time. I mean, it was a cash grab. The point of the movie, like, to draw people in, draw families in who like Grogu. It's for merchandise sales, if we're being totally honest. It's just a waste like, I feel like they fumbled with Mando, in my opinion. They fumbled with the show. Season 3 was pretty bad. I didn't care for it. Most people didn't care for it. But seasons 1 and 2 were just so special and just very rare. Like for that time period where it was right off the Rise of Skywalker, which most people did not care for, very hated final film of the trilogy. And The Mandalorian came out of nowhere and was super successful, and it really brought, I think, energy and enthusiasm back into the Star Wars franchise. And then season 3 of The Mandalorian hit, and nobody really cared for that. They kind of, in my opinion, what they shouldn't have put Mando into the Book of Boba Fett, and they should have made the whole story of season 3 be focused on getting Grogu back. And yet they didn't do that. They had to come up with this whole other plot line, and I just didn't care for it. I didn't care for season 3. And I was hoping season 4 would redeem it, but the actors and writers strikes put that on pause, and then they decided to pursue a movie instead. So I thought, okay, maybe this will like redeem the franchise. But I still feel like they should have just made a season 4. I think a season 4 would have worked so much better than a movie, and just fixed their things and maybe made it the final. I don't know. I read something somewhere, and I don't know if this was true or not, but this show had planned to be like a 5, 6 season show. And I don't know what happened. Like season 3, it took like what, over 2 years to come out, and it just ended up being a massive disappointment. And I think they were kind of stuck, like, what do we do after this? And the strikes gave them time to think that they wanted to turn this into a movie, which is really, and I read something somewhere, and I really do think this is so accurate. They said the film seems like it's laser focused on catering to people who have only heard about the show. And that's very true. This is for people who have heard of The Mandalorian but have never taken the time to invest in it. People who like Pedro Pascal, because there is a pretty big fan base for him that will watch anything he's in, whether it's Fantastic Four, The Last of Us, or anything The Mandalorian related, that will just watch for Pedro Pascal. And there's also a bunch of people, specifically kids, that will watch for Grogu. So really capitalizing on those fan bases, I think, was what made them decide to make this movie, and why it hasn't been a complete dud, is because the average family who doesn't care about The Mandalorian, or average person who hasn't watched it, is fine with this movie. It's a standalone film. It has some nice moments with Mando and Grogu. The plot's good enough. I mean, it's a standalone film. So for people who just don't care about the show or haven't watched it, it's a good film for them. But for those people who do care about the show and really enjoyed the first 2 seasons, and didn't either liked or didn't like season 3, the majority of people I would assume were the latter. I This was just not the movie for them, and that's where I've heard the most amount of criticism from people who were big fans of the show and just did not care about the movie. Thought it was trash. I mean, the same with season three. My dad thought the movie was better than season three, and I mean, I guess, but like this didn't have a heart. There was no heart in this movie except for one particular moment, and that moment was towards the end when you see Grogu taking care of Mando as he's dying from the poison. That had some heart to it, and I did like that tidbit. However, they dragged out the poison stuff for too long, and one of my issues is that this movie dragged out for way too long. It clocked in at an 2 hours and 12 minutes, which is way too long of a runtime for this movie. They could have easily have made it like an hour and 45, an hour and 50, at most 2 hours. It did not need to go on for any longer. The plot just ended up feeling stale towards the end. But if in all honesty, the opening scene of the movie where Mando and Grogu invade the ship and take down the warlords, that was my favorite scene of the movie. That and then the scene I already mentioned. But that scene was very much felt like a Mandalorian like classic to me. It just felt true to the show. And I mean, it was a pretty good opening scene, a lot of action. I thought that was easily my favorite action sequence of the movie was that opening scene. And then you go right into the theme of the Mandalorian show with the Star Wars music. Very much it got me excited right off the bat. And then it kind of slowly started to go downhill after that. I mean, we did pick up right where season three had left off. So I did like that. There were maybe some interesting themes of like redemption for Rada the Hutt, some interesting things there. That part of it was okay to me. But beyond that, I just felt like it was a waste of time. The gladiator fights inside the ring, it didn't feel like the Mandalorian. It just felt way too far-fetched. And my dad told me that it could have been a parallel to the gladiator fights in the second movie, the ones that were outside, but I didn't feel that parallel enough. I just didn't see that. I don't think it was a very strong parallel if that's what they were intending it to be. But I thought a lot of the action sequences, in my opinion, were pretty choppy. Like especially the ones that involve the monsters, like the one with the snake in the water. I didn't care for that. I mean, the ring one where there's like these seven monsters fighting Mando and Rada, that was a very messy sequence. So I thought anything involving the monsters, the CGI monsters, I thought was pretty poor. The action sequences just involving like again that first scene I thought was a really well done action sequence. The ending one was pretty good too, except the scene where like Rada and like is like fighting the twins. I thought that was like what the heck is going on here? I don't think we really want to see the three Hutts fighting each other like that. That's not really the fight we want to see. I also enjoyed what we got of Grogu using his powers, but I just felt like they used it at the most convenient times rather than just him like using his powers and like more just practical senses. It just felt like he only used them for the big show-stopping moments. And even then, this movie just felt like it had no stakes. I knew Mando wasn't gonna die there, like from the poison. We knew he wasn't gonna die when the snake was in the water with him. We knew those things weren't gonna happen. And so this movie, it really lacks heart, it lacks a good message, and I don't know. I know I'm probably being really hard on this movie because it's not a terrible movie. As a standalone film, it worked pretty well. It's like a couple of episodes of the show put together on the big screen, and it was nice to get to go to a movie with my dad. I enjoyed that. We do enjoy this, and I mean, but there was just no hype for the movie for it being the first movie since the Rise of Skywalker. I mean, this was a big deal and there's just not that momentum for it. I mean, because for fans that are big fans of the franchise, but again, this movie feels very catered and very focused on winning over the average person who just knows about Pedro Pascal, knows about the Mandalorian, knows about Grogu, and just making them their focus for it instead of focusing on the fans who enjoyed the first two seasons and who enjoyed the franchise in general. It's just a very odd way to market your first movie since The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, to me, again, I felt like the Mandalorian show breathed life back into the franchise after The Rise of Skywalker, which was such a disappointment for most people. I thought the Mandalorian breathed that energy back into the franchise. And just for this to be like the first movie since they just completely fumbled the bag with The Mandalorian. They had so much potential, and I'm going to assume that he will show up in Ahsoka season two. And I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I My dad and I both agreed that we thought this movie should have finally ended the Mandalorian and Ahsoka stories and put them together for a team up to take down Thrawn. And that should have been the movie instead of it being a standalone movie that really was pointless to everything. And it just scrapped Ahsoka season two and just did a movie instead. And I mean, if season two delivers, then that's fine. But this movie wasn't needed in the first place. They could have just had the Mando be in Ahsoka and that just kind of end his arc. I don't think the movie was needed. The movie like also it would have been fine if the movie was a conclusion to his arc, but considering he's likely to show up in Ahsoka, this was just a waste of time and pointless. So the only good things about the movie were again the opening sequence I thought was really well done. Pedro Pascal, I mean he did a great job. I mean for the scenes that he was given with like his face being shown. I thought he did a great job in those scenes. The music, I mean, a lot of cool shots too, but in my opinion, there was a bit too much green in this movie, the color green, and there's a lot of it just didn't feel like that space western vibe that really I enjoyed in in the original show. But I mean, again, there was some great music. I mean, my favorite scene besides the opening, I did enjoy, of course, when Grogu was like caring for Mando as he was dying. I thought that there was a lot of heart there. And as far as humor for this movie, there was some involving Grogu, but I don't know. It felt like felt pretty dry overall. I mean, like the Mando, like Pedro Pascal had a lot of screen time during this movie, or screen time meaning the amount of lines that he got, the dialogue, he got a lot of it, which we've known him to be just kind of be like quiet, not shy, but just like quiet in general. He doesn't talk much, but in this movie, he talks a ton. Like he's very much more forward of a character personality in the movie, which I thought was an interesting change. But that's kind of my thoughts on the movie. I'm curious what people think down below. I mean, whether you're a fan of The Mandalorian, a fan of Star Wars, or just an average person who just has heard about the show and who likes Pedro or likes Grogu. I mean, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts down below and to see if people agree with me, kind of what their takes are. It wasn't a terrible movie, but it wasn't a great movie either. I feel like if they really wanted to make like to redeem season three, in my opinion, and really like deliver a compelling story for the Mandalorian, I think they should have just made like a team up with him and Ahsoka to take down Thrawn. Because I think this timeline is getting old. I think they need to move on. I think they need to create new stories. I know that they're coming out with Star Wars: The Starfighter, or just Starfighter, not the at the beginning of it. Sorry, but Starfighter is coming out next May, and Ryan Gosling's in that, and that's a standalone film, which I don't understand why they're making standalone films instead of just creating a new trilogy. I don't understand. I think Star Wars has really struggled. If I'm being honest, I think Marvel is slowly getting on the right track again. I think DC is on the right track again with the Superman success, but I think Star Wars is struggling. Like I think they were doing so well with the Mandalorian and all of that, and then they just had like Obi-Wan, Acolyte, and Boba Fett that just did not do as hot. And I enjoyed Acolyte, but I didn't care for the other two. But then you have the show like Andor, which Andor draws so many people in, people that don't even watch Star Wars at all. People enjoy Andor. Same with The Mandalorian, honestly. I know that like a lot of people that didn't care for Star Wars but watched The Mandalorian because they enjoyed it so much. And now that Andor's over and now that they're kind of wrapping up the Mandalorian story, I just don't know what directions like the show can go in and what's going to keep people coming in to it. I don't know. I think they need to move on. I think after Ahsoka season two, I think they need to find, assuming that's the last season, and I think it will be, they need to find a new storyline, a new direction for the franchise to go in. And I don't know what that is, but I hope they find it. And I know they have a lot of plans for more movies in the future. So that is something to look forward to. I guess they're going back to the big screen. They're retiring the Disney Plus shows, which is probably a good thing because they haven't been all that great as of late. The last good one was probably, I mean, Acolyte was okay, and then of course Andor, but I like to think of Andor as its own separate thing because that was like a rare gem was Andor. So, but yeah, again, let me know down below what you think of the movie, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. So thanks everyone for listening, and bye everyone.